In terms of tools, what I need is a poker. This is a Karina poker from her set, and I'm also using a flat dental thing to help kind of scooch and nudge dots into place. Here's the glass you'll need for the encased Morning Glory bead. A transparent cobalt 060, a transparent clear, I use super clear 006, an opaque white, I use Effetre 204, and a yellow opaque, I'm using Lauscha 340, but any color yellow will work. I am also going to use a little bit of Effetre. It will create a background for the bead. This isn't super critical. You can use any Effetre or you can do stringer work. I'm using Valcox Effetre Forest Nymph. Hi, welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make an encased Morning Glory bead. We're going to start out by making a white opaque barrel bead on the mandrel. You want to preheat the mandrel. That will help keep bubbles from forming. Make it easier to get the bead release out. So I'm going to just wind on a small core. You don't want to have too big of a footprint, otherwise these beads get really big. So start small. We'll be adding lots of layers. I'm going to just marver that a little bit. The marver I'm using here is just a simple square piece of brass, and it's sitting on a candlestick holder, a broad one, broad candlestick holder that I found at a craft store. So here we have a narrow footprint barrel bead. So I'm going to dip that into Effetre just to add a bit of some color for the background to the Morning Glories. I'm going to just heat that up and tap it a little bit in my Effetre bowl and just pick up some color. And then I want to melt that in, and I'll marver it out a little bit too. Just restore my barrel shape here. Next we want to encase this with clear. I'm using 006, which is a Effetre super clear, but any clear will work. And I'm going to start with a barrel wrap on the left end. That will help kind of encase that white and close it. Now I'm going to just kind of wrap around the bead here. What I want to do is have my glass rod in the flame and my bead below the flame. So it's as if I am heating up like a little machine and pushing my clear through the flame and down onto the bead. I want to add a little bit of an extra wrap on the right side, just like I did on the left side, so that will help encase that white and keep it from bleeding up and around the edges. It'll help make a nice bead pucker. So we will marver that. Now's a good time to kind of help scooch that extra clear glass that we put there around the edge. You don't want to push it all the way down to the mandrel, but you want to just kind of tap it down a little bit just to help it cover in and cover up that white there so it doesn't escape. When you're working with a thin tool like this, it gets hot pretty quickly, so every so often you may need to dip it in your water to cool it out. You can tell it starts to stick to the glass when it gets too hot. Okay, that looks good. We're going to shape it up a bit. Now the white glass turns transparent when it's hot, and it's opaque when it's cool. And so we'll be using this property to kind of judge the heat in our bead. Okay, so the next step is we want to decide where we're going to put our Morning Glory flowers. And we're going to take our white and we're going to put a couple of dots on the bead where we want the Morning Glories to be. So I'll just do a couple for the sake of a demo. You can put as many as you like. Okay, so I've got 4 dots on there for the Morning Glory, and those are opaque white. What we're going to do is heat it up until it turns clear and then flatten it a bit using our dental tool. That'll help make it round. At this point, you can scooch them a little bit if you decide, oh, that one needs to go a little more to the right. As you're pressing it, you kind of scooch it to the right a bit. or to the left, or whatever you may need. The idea here is to widen it up and make it a little bit broader than we put down. And at this stage, you don't want to be heating up enough that the barrel white turns clear. Okay, next we're going to put a dot of the cobalt, transparent cobalt, on top. And transparent cobalt's good for morning glory. You can do this in any color. It'll be just a different style flower or fantasy flower. So we're heating up the tip of our cobalt. We're going to push it down, pull it up, and flame cut it. I want to heat it all the way around, and then I'm going to bring that to the top so that gravity can pull it down in the direction it needs to go. Heat it up a little bit more and let gravity pull it straight down. While gravity's pulling that down and that white from that morning glory is turning back to opaque, we're going to get ready for the next one. So push it down, pull it up, flame cut it, heat it all the way around, and put it on top so gravity can let it set. Next one, push it down, pull it up, heat it all around. Find a good spot where you can see this. Let gravity pull it down. It's a little bit taller. Give it a little extra time. Okay? Push it down, pull it up, cut it off, and put it on the top so gravity can pull that blob into its place. Now we're going to help it along a little bit with our little dental tool here. Go to the next one, heat it up. Cobalt's a nice color to judge temperature by because it turns that beautiful orange color. It's really easy to tell when it's heated and when it's cooled. In this stage, you don't want to turn the white opaque. You don't want to turn the white clear. You want to keep the white opaque if you can, because we're trying to spread the blue over the top of the white. We need to go back a second time. Press it down a little bit more. Okay, so now we've got 4 big happy morning glory beads started, or flowers started on here. Okay, next we want to put another white dot in the middle. So add a little bit of insurance heat to my bead while I'm warming up the tip of my white rod, and we're going to add a white dot to the center of each. It doesn't need to be as big as the prior dot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Press that in, and we can scooch it a little bit as we're pressing, keep it centered. Go around one more time. Again, when I'm heating this, I'm only turning that white to transparent, and the cobalt's turning orange, but the white below it, the first layer of the thing, is not changing to transparent, so I'm not getting this soupy hot. It's all about heat control. So now I'm going to add one more small dot of transparent on this, on top of this layer of white. That gives it some depth. 1, 2, and you'll see I push it down, I pull it up, and then I put that bead on top so that gravity pulls it down and keeps that dot centered. Just automatically do that every time I place a dot. Now if you look at the morning glory picture, I've got a photograph of one I found on the internet there on the left. It has a little bit of a yellow core, so we'll do that. I didn't pre-pull a yellow stringer, so I will show you how to do that now off the end of the mandrel. We only need about 1 inch. So what I'm going to do is heat up the tip of the mandrel and heat up the tip of my rod. This is a Lauscha yellow, but you can use any yellow. Touch them together, hold them, hold them, hold them, and then pull out a small stringer. There we go. Now we got a nice little pointy stringer. And I'm going to put a yellow dot in the center of each of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to, again, take my dental tool and heat up the yellow, melt that down. I can help kind of center it as I'm melting it down. Cool off my tool. Okay, so now the next step is the fun part. It's going to be plunging. So the idea here is to heat up all of the Morning Glory, all the way down to the bottom white layer till it's all transparent. And then you can actually see through it, and you can see that white barrel bead with your frit on it below it. So I'm going to start with this one and kind of heat it. I'm heating it in a circle from all directions and giving it a second. I don't want it to become runny. And once I get to the point where I can actually see through it, I will bring it to the side, give it a second, find the middle, and do a deep plunge. I want to go all the way down to that core level. And you'll notice I was turning my tool back and forth while it was in there. Okay, let me get a bit of insurance heat while I'm explaining this again. So the pointy tools, because they're small, they heat up very fast. So you generally need to cool them after each plunge, especially a deep plunge like this. We're going to start by heating up this one here. We want to heat it up all the way so that you can see through it and you can get that all those white layers transparent. You can actually, when the glow goes down a little bit, you can see straight through to that, to the white layer with the frit below it. And that's just the right temp. Give it a sec, find that yellow, and do a deep plunge and rotate, and then come out. And you're leaving basically a deep hole in there. We're going to trap an air bubble in there in a minute. Let me do the other two. Heat it up. You're heating it in a circle to get it heated the whole way around, you know, like gravity. Let that heat penetrate a minute. Okay, we're going to do a deep plunge. We're going to rotate and then take it out. All right, and we have one more. Here it is here. Heat it up, rotate it, let the gravity pull it in the right direction, let that heat penetrate. Do a deep plunge, rotate my plungy tool, pull it out. Okay, so let's just give it a bit of insurance heat now. I don't want to heat it up too much because I don't want those holes to close up. We're going to trap an air bubble in it. So now we're going to take my clear rod. I'm going to heat up just a small dollop on the end. And I'm going to go to one of these holes. I'm going to put it straight down and then pull it up and flame cut it. And again, put it up on the top so gravity will pull that down. Now that trapped an air bubble in it. It's kind of hard to tell yet, but we'll see it later. Let's heat up my clear rod. Pick the next one. Push it on. Pull it up. Flame cut it. Heat it up all around and put it on top so that gravity will allow that to pull it straight down. While gravity's pulling that one down, I'm heating up my rod. Push it on. Pull it up. Flame cut it. Heat it all around and let gravity pull it down. I got one more here. Push it down, pull it up, heat it all around, and let gravity pull it down. Okay, so now we have 4 rather large lenses on top of each of the 4 Morning Glories. So what we need to do is encase and bring the rest of the lower level up to this. So let's pick a spot in here. We've got a pea-size bit heated up. Push it onto the bead. Okay, so that's gap in between those ones. Let's get a pea-size gather here, push it on. And what you're doing is you're allowing your bead to stay cool. Your clear is flowing. And you're pushing it on in such a way as to allow a channel for the bubbles to escape. You need to think about how you're pushing it in. So I'm going to push it from the top down towards the bottom on that part, and I'm going to kind of push it in and go around that way over there. And you just basically go around the bead until you fill it up. We're not worried about making it all smooth yet. We're worried about getting glass onto the bead in between where our Morning Glories are. We're just getting the glass down now, and we're getting the glass down without trapping more air bubbles. We only want those 4 special bubbles that we deliberately put in there. So as before, I tend to do a little bit of a wrap on the left edge and a little bit of a wrap on the right edge. Helps with your bead holes. Now I'm going to start to melt in the raised ridges where I added glass, and I can carefully check and see if I might need a little bit. Like I may need a bit there because the blue is glowing a little bit more, suggesting a thinner spot. So this looks good. So now I'm going to melt this in. And we want to melt the outer layer to the point where all the morning glories become transparent again. In the glass, the surface tension of the glass naturally wants to have the minimum surface area to the maximum volume, which is a sphere. The glass will naturally round up into a sphere. And we don't want to heat it so much that we get the core transparent layer. I probably got a little bit too hot there. But it's okay to get the morning glories transparent. So when you're heating it up like this, you can look against something in the background and look up the shape above the mandrel and the shape below the mandrel. And if you have too much in one spot, pause when it's on the top, and gravity will help flow it down, and it'll help you round out your bead. Last thing I do is always check my bead holes. If I needed to at this point, I could add a little tiny wrap of clear along the edge. I'll do that over here. So I will take, this just happens to be a stringer I had sitting on the table. I'll do a little bit of a wrap, and I don't want to touch the mandrel. I just want to go clear to clear. And then I'm going to melt that in. But I have to melt a little bit to the left of it as well so that the glass will flow, and that'll make a really nice puckered bead end there. The left side looked like it came out okay. So again, we want to round up the bead and let surface tension and its physics do its thing. You're just helping it along. And there we go. You can see how deeply it plunged all the way down to the core.